man, check it out. Yeah?
You know, you can use your calculator to estimate the values of some very useful points on a polynomial graph.
Welcome to Fantasy Island.
You might ask, what points might I like to know given a function or a polynomial function? Well, you certainly might want to know the maximum or maximum points of a function. There may be more than one, okay? Not one more than one maximum, but more than one relative maximum between two areas. You may want to know minimum points, exact values where it reaches its lowest point. You may want to know the y-axis intercepts, like this. Okay, where does it intercept the y-axis? You may want to know the x-axis intercepts, or the zeros, or the roots, or the solutions. Now wait a minute. What you need to know is all four of these things mean the same thing. The x-axis intercepts, the zeros, the roots, these are all the polynomial function's solutions. Okay, so they're going to be of great use to you. But note that they are called the zeros, because that's where the function equals 0. It's where y equals 0. Believe it or not, all of these values are found just about in the same method, using the same button on your calculator. But before we do that, we'll have to tell the calculator a couple things. Number one, you'll have to tell it exactly which of those things you want to know. Do you want to know a maximum? Do you want to know the minimum? Do you want to know a y-intercept? Or do you want to know an x-intercept? It can't read your mind, of course. Okay, so first you'll have to tell it that. Then you'll have to tell it where. And this is very important, because that graph on that calculator, certainly the calculator isn't drawing a picture of the whole graph. Remember, the graph goes on forever. So you want to ask, what portion of the graph do you want, for instance, a minimum for? Do you want the minimum for this area of the graph? From here to here? Well, I guess that would be this point. That would be the lowest point of that area, wouldn't it? Or maybe you want a minimum for this area of the graph, from here to here. Now, that would be a whole different minimum, wouldn't it? That would be this point. So you have to tell it where you want it to do this calculation. And you tell it that using animals like this lower bound marker. That's how low you want it to look. And this upper bound marker. That's how high you want it to look. I'm going to show you in a second how to do that, but I want you to be ready for the fact that we're going to use the cursor keys to mark where the lower bound and the upper bound are of what we're trying to find. Well, actually, we'll use the cursor keys and the enter key to finalize it. Okay? The other thing the calculator is going to want from you is a guess. For some reason, and I couldn't tell you why, it wants a guess as to what you think the answer should about be. Once again, we're going to use the cursor keys to tell the calculator what our guess is.
But that's so easy. I should have thought of it, boy.
It's going to be quite easy. Let's demonstrate using the CALC button. The CALC button. CALC button you get by hitting second, then trace. Second, then trace yields CALC. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate to you how to use the CALC button to find the roots or zeros of this function y equals x to the third minus 3x.
Pay attention, boys. I'll show you how it's done.
Let's do it. Now, let's get this function into the calculator first. I'll hit y equals. I might have to clear out an old one, but I don't have to here. And I'll put in x to the third. So x to the third minus 3x. And let's take a look at this graph. It's a typical cubic, isn't it? Now I want to know the roots, or the zeros, and I hope you can see there are 3 of them. Okay? Let me just find one of them at a time. I'll do this by hitting CALC, second, trace. And it wants to know, what do I want to find? Well, the first thing I told you, I want to find zeros. So I can either cursor to number 2 or hit the number 2. I'll cursor so you can see what's going on. Cursor and enter. And that tells it I want to find zeros. Now I want to find this 0 right here first. So the first thing it asks me, as you can see, is what is the left bound? I put in a left bound by cursoring. I'm going to cursor. See how my X mark is moving? I have to make sure that I'm to the left of what I want to find. I'm certainly to the left. I'm also below it, but I'm to the left of it. Anywhere to the left of it. And I'll hit enter. Then it asks me for a right bound. So I need to be to the right of what I want to find. So I'm going to hit the right arrow. Now I know I'm to the right of it. I don't want to go too far to the right, or I'll be to the right of the other one as well, and the calculator won't know which one to give me. So this is far enough, and I'll hit enter. And you can see it put up the 2 little marks here. Now it wants a guess. As long as I'm somewhere near it, I'll cursor somewhere near where I think the 0 is. That's my guess. And notice I use the cursors to do that. And I'll hit enter. And the calculator thought for a little bit, and son of a gun, the 0 is at negative 1.732051. Is that close enough for you? And of course y is 0. So that's one way to find a 0, or a root of a function, using the CALC button. Now this function has 3 zeros, 3 roots if you would. Let's find the middle one just to see, what's the same about doing this. So I'll start off, I'm looking at the graph already, and I'll go into CALC, which is second, trace. And once again, it's going to ask, what do I want to find? The value is 0, minimum, maximum, etc. And I want to find a 0. So I'll cursor and hit enter. And it asks me for a left bound of what I want to find. In this case, my cursor is right here. I better move a little bit to the right, so that I want to find this one right here. So I want to be to the left of that. So here I am to the left of that, and I'll hit enter. Now it wants a right bound. Notice, by the way, it put up the little left wall. I want to be to the right of what I want to find. So I'll cursor to the right. Got to go a couple ways here. Okay, now certainly I can see that it's to the right of it. Probably too far to the right of it, but that's okay. And I'll hit enter. And do you see that it put up the right wall? So it's going to find any root that's between these 2 points, between this area. And then it wants a guess. So I'll cursor on to where I think that is, and hit enter. And I bet you already knew that that 0 is at 0. 0, 0. So notice that we put in a left bound, a right bound, and a guess. Okay, I'm going to clear out and get back to the main screen. And this time I'm going to find a relative minimum. What's a relative minimum of the same function? I already have the function in, so I don't have to go y equals or anything. So I'm going to hit graph, and you can see the function. Now the relative minimum is going to be right here. And I want to find out exactly what that value is. Watch how I do it. First I'm going to hit CALC, second, trace. Now it wants the minimum. So of course I'll cursor down to 3 and hit enter. Now it's going to ask the same 3 questions. What's the left bound of your minimum? And I'm already to the left of it, so I'll hit enter. See, it put up the little left wall. Now it wants a right bound, so I'll cursor to make sure I'm to the right a little bit of my minimum, and I'll hit enter. And then it wants a guess, so I'll cursor on to the minimum itself and hit enter. And apparently, it took a little time. It's taken a long time. The minimum is at it's at x equals 0.999993. I'm guessing that the minimum is at the value 1, isn't it? Please notice a couple things. They're all done about the same way, aren't they? And this is a relative minimum. This function, if you see, goes on forever in the left direction. Goes all the way down past purgatory, through hell, goes on forever. So it really doesn't have a minimum. It has a relative minimum, though, between those two values that I defined as the lower bound and the upper bound. Okay. I'm going to clear out one more time. And we're going to come back in and we're going to find a relative maximum for that function. Same steps. Let's go look at the graph. And the relative maximum is going to be here, isn't it? There isn't an absolute maximum because it goes up through heaven. So I want to find this point and see exactly what it is. So I'm going to go calc by second trace. And I want a maximum here. So I guess that's on number 4, isn't it? And I'll hit enter. Now it wants a left bound, so I need to be to the left of that relative maximum. So I'm going to cursor. See how I'm hitting the left cursor? I'm still not to the left of it. Now I think I can see that I'm to the left of it. So I'll hit enter. Now it wants a right bound, and I'll hit the right cursor. Make sure I'm to the right of this maximum. I'm about right on it right now. Okay, I think I'm to the right of it, and I'll hit enter. See how it's put up the two walls here. And now it wants a guess. So let me cursor on to the maximum and hit enter. And it took a little while, and it looks like the maximum is at the number -1, and the maximum value of the function is 2. That's a relative maximum. But hopefully you see that they're all done about the same, aren't they? Now you can use that same method to find intercepts, maxes, mins, roots, all the various things that are listed in the calc menu. Well, what you need to do now
I say this calls for action, and now.
is go practice doing the homework. Go ahead.